you ever talk to Simon Owen, our manager? He knew him as well. I was talking to him this morning. He said that here was like well known, like by the whole international press. He's been doing it a long time.
I'm sure I keep bumping it.
Yeah.
That's why this is.
These lights are a lot.
I saw that there was a Ukrainian producer. Somebody in our class figured it out. And also that was on staff. I think he covered that. Helping out Ukrainian people. She was killed. I know what you're saying.
I love all these people who are like,
He already is.
immediately just stop paying. I mean, I just feel like, I don't know why fucking drugs are free.
Every single person that sees him in the face, I feel like they see him and he's not good.
You could work with. You won't pay you.
So,
He's got to go through the interview process.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's perfectly clear that Vladimir Putin is not the cause of this rampant inflation that began at the beginning of the year, was fed by the $2 trillion so-called rescue package, which produced exactly what Larry Summers predicted, 40-year high inflation. So let there be no confusion about the reason we're in this inflationary spiral. With regard to the ongoing war in Ukraine, it seems to me the president believes that any effort to help the Ukrainians is potentially provocative to the Russians. Look, the provocation's already occurred. The war is underway. We need to do any and everything we can to help our Ukrainian friends, short of, as we all agree, putting American troops across the NATO line. All of the eastern NATO countries want to be helpful. We ought to be encouraging them to be helpful and not trying to deter their efforts to get arms of all kinds into the Ukrainians as rapidly as possible.
You've probably heard a number of our Republican senators get up on the floor and talk about COVID mandates, and later today we're going to vote on repealing the federal transportation mask mandate. Now that's, of course, a mandate that has been in effect for a while. It'll be interesting to see how Democrats decide to vote on that, but I think it's really ironic that the administration to this day still hasn't repealed the rule that requires toddlers to wear masks even when they're out on the playground. So this is an issue that a lot of us have been talking about for a long time, but leave it to this administration to worry more about toddlers wearing masks even when they're out on the playground, or people wearing masks when they're traveling, instead of the historic price hikes that we're seeing, not only in energy, but all the other things that people buy in this country. These inflationary increases are historic in size and scope, and they're the things that the American people care deeply about. In fact, a typical family, we're told, is going to pay $2,000 more this year for gasoline than they did last year. And the administration is now shamelessly trying to say these are Putin's price hikes, or this is corporate greed. Let's be clear about this. This is a direct result of policies that this administration has put in place that have demonstrated a hostility toward energy in this country. The president campaigned on and ran against oil and gas companies in this country and putting them out of business. And we are seeing today a direct consequence and the results of those policies. So if you look at the last 14 months, gas prices have been going up steadily. This isn't something that happened overnight as a result of the conflict in Ukraine. This, again, is a direct result of this administration's campaign and crusade to put oil and gas companies out of business. You don't have to look very far in the distant past to see when America had energy independence, and it is a result of an all-of-the-above energy policy. We can get there again, but this administration is going to have to dramatically change course in order for that to happen.
The Biden energy policies have resulted in record high prices at the pump for American consumers. And in some places across America today, people are paying $5 a gallon for gasoline. Joe Biden says it's because of Vladimir Putin. Well, that's not the case. If you just take a look at what prices were like when Joe Biden took office, gallon of gasoline, $2.38 the day Biden became president. It's probably lower than that the day he was elected president. Went up when he became president, and now, before the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, the price at the pump was $3.53 in the United States. This is all on Joe Biden. Families in America know that in Joe Biden's first year as president, they paid over $1,000 more for energy than they did the year before. Joe Biden is the president of high gas prices. He surrendered our energy dominance to Vladimir Putin. We were the #1 producer in the world. We're now #3. It was a cash cow for Putin to fund his killing machine. And now the White House is trying to play catch up. The spokesperson at the White House said that, well, we're producing at record numbers. That's not true. We're producing about 1.4 million barrels less a day. 1.4 million barrels less a day than we were right before the pandemic. Big difference. The White House also uses an excuse that they say there are a number of leases out there that haven't been used. Many of them are tied up in red tape coming out of this administration. The lease is just the first step. You need to then get a permission to drill for the energy, and they are blocking those permits. It's like if you rented an apartment, you paid the rent, and then they don't give you the key to move in. Joe Biden has been fighting American energy, it's oil, gas, coal, since day #1, and that's because he is a puppet on the string pulled and controlled by the climate elitists. Joe Biden would rather turn to dictators like those in Iran and those in Venezuela, rather than turn against the climate elitists who dictate the energy policy of that Democrat Party and of his presidency. So now he's trying to pass the buck to Vladimir Putin. The American people are not buying it. They know we have the energy in the ground here. They know we have workers here who can get and deliver that energy to market. The CBS poll on Sunday showed that 63% of Americans say we should be using more American oil and gas. That's the way to lower the price at the pump.
So last week, the Congress passed a 2,700-page appropriations bill. Hard to believe that any member of the Congress had time to read all 2,700 pages from the time it was done until the time we voted on it. And there were some really good things in that bill. Money to defend the country, money to help the Ukrainians, more money for the National Institute of Health, more money for Pell Grants, more money for individuals with disability Education Act. But that's no way to do business. We all know that. So I was trying to think, when was the last time we even came close to doing this in the right way, and when did we get started? So it was my first year in the Senate, 2011. We passed the bill for the year before in April of that year, so passing the bill in March, no excuse not to go forward. Senator Herb Kohl and I took our Ag FDA bill to the floor in late October, spent about 2 or 3 weeks on it, and it passed November 1, and with it, we added the Commerce, Justice, Science Bill and Transportation and Housing and Urban Development, signed into law by the end of November. Out of the Senate conference, signed into law, and we passed all the rest of the bills between then and the 23rd of December. People need to see us do our work in the right way. Members need to have a chance to participate and amend those bills and see if their ideas are good enough to get a majority of their colleagues to join them. The country's tired, and the member of Congress is tired of one big bill, usually in the following year, that nobody gets a chance to read. Doesn't mean it would have been a mistake not to defend the country. It would have been a mistake not to increase defense spending. It would have been a mistake not to help the Ukrainians. But there are other ways to do this, and now is not too late to get started for this year.
Folks, we need to get real about what's happening with our fuel prices. And the Biden administration wants everyone to believe that the price at the pump is all Putin's fault. And we know that's not true. Fuel prices have been going up since day one of the Biden administration. And how did that happen? One, he stopped the Keystone XL pipeline. That was on day one. He has certainly banned any new drilling and then come along with all of the red tape, as Senator Barrasso outlined, for actually drilling to get those resources here in the United States. And the president has failed to live up to his promises when it comes to biofuels all across the Midwest, which would benefit the entire United States if we would utilize more of our homegrown energy resources. So let's not be fooled. The president is literally gaslighting the American people. He feels if he says it enough, people are going to believe that fuel prices were Putin's fault. We know that's not true. So, folks, let's all step up. Let's push this administration to get over their deranged climate policy, and let's unleash American energy.
So all across Florida, we have families now that are going to food banks because food prices are up. We have families all across our state they're struggling. Gas or food for their kids. That's what's going on all across Florida. Last week was announced CPI 7.9%, almost a 40-year high. Wholesale prices up 10% we got today. This is unprecedented. This is all because Biden doesn't care about the poor people in this country. He don't care about people on fixed income. He is causing all this. We need to do these things. We need an Operation Warp Speed to get energy exploration done in this country now, and it's got to get started. We've got to streamline the permitting process. The federal government is a pain in the rear to do business with. We've got to reduce regulatory environment in this country. If we want to get more jobs, we want to get lower inflation, we got to get more people in business. The Biden administration is not focused on it. Take Tampa. Tampa's got the highest inflation rate in the entire country right now, 11.8%. Think about how many individuals' income is going up at almost 12% a year. Very few. It's all caused because of what Biden's doing.
Peter McConnell. Good afternoon. You talked about what is a bridge too far for the United States involving Ukraine. But how do you say no when Zelensky comes before the Congress virtually tomorrow, and he's going to ask for specific things and going to come down hard, asking for no-fly zones? How do you say, we're going to help you, but?
Well, my guess is that everything he's going to request is something we ought to be doing. And so my individual response to that would be yes. Unfortunately, the administration keeps on dragging its heels. Even when they do the right thing, they do it too late. And the administration needs to get the message. We need to help the Ukrainians in every conceivable way, and we need to do it right now. Not only us, but our NATO allies, who seem to be way more anxious to help the Ukrainians than this administration.
So you're convinced that his requests are all, syncopata with what you're saying. He's not going to ask for a no-fly zone. He's not going to whipsaw Congress.
He already knows that the U.S. is not going to engage directly in Ukraine. We are not going to enforce a no-fly zone in Ukraine. But there are a lot of weapons that are extremely effective in controlling the air. A good example of that are the MiGs that the Poles were anxious to send to Ukraine, which the administration apparently discouraged them from doing.
So, just to follow up, would you support sanctions against China if they help Russia evade Western sanctions, or whether they send military hardware to Russia?
Look, I think we are open to applying any pressure we possibly can, not only on Russia, but those who try to help Russia.
Leader McConnell, will you insist on changes to the House-passed bill, the energy ban? Will you insist on changes to that bill or any legislation to force the administration's hand on the Ukraine aircraft issue?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. I haven't met anybody in the Senate who's not in favor of seeing those MiGs get into Ukraine. Exactly how to make that happen is still under discussion.
You said this morning in your floor speech that the Soft on Crime Brigade is supporting Judge Jackson's nomination, but I'm wondering how you reconcile that statement with the FOP, all the other police and law enforcement groups that have endorsed Judge Jackson.
I was just talking about some of her support groups, and they're always anxious to talk about groups that support our nominees when we have a Republican president. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Court relief?